For decades, we've been fighting the cybersecurity war on a pretty familiar battlefield, right? Software, firewalls, cloud intelligence. But the front line? It's shifting. It's moving to a place you might not expect, deep inside the silicon itself. Today, we're diving into a fundamental, and I mean fundamental, shift in how we build digital trust. And boom, that sentence right there, that's the whole story. We're moving from a world of building bigger walls to a world where security is just an intrinsic part of the hardware. It's a pretty radical idea, so let's break down why it's become so absolutely necessary. For years, cybersecurity has felt like this endless game of whack-a-mole. You know the drill. We find a threat, we build a patch, and we just wait for the next attack. But this whole reactive approach, well, it's hitting its limits. Attackers are getting way too creative, and they're starting to make the very ground beneath our feet feel really unstable. And this is that endless cycle we're all so familiar with. The big problem is, while our security teams are scrambling to patch the last vulnerability, the attackers, they're already searching for the next way in. And often, they're looking at levels our software can't even see. I mean, just look at how they're doing it. Modern threats are seriously sophisticated. They don't just attack your operating system anymore. No, they're attacking the firmware. That's the super essential code that boots your device before the OS even loads. They're compromising hardware in the supply chain before it ever gets to you. They're tricking trusted users into just handing over the keys. So the big question is, how can software defend against threats that are operating beneath it? Well, the short answer is, it can't.
Okay, so if the old foundation is cracked, where do we build the new one? The answer is you gotta go deeper, all the way down to the silicon. And this brings us to a concept called the hardware root of trust, or HRoT for short.
So let's get the official word on this. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, gives us this formal definition. The two key words you really want to focus on here are inherently trusted and maintains integrity. It's basically a source of truth that is, by its very design, built to resist tampering.
So in plain English, what does that mean? Think of it like a security coprocessor. It's this small, super secure, and independent brain living right inside the chip. And its only job is to constantly ask, hey, is everything running on this device legit? Is it uncompromised? It doesn't just sit there. It's actively validating and protecting.
Okay, but this is where a huge misconception comes into play. A really dangerous one, actually. For a long time, a lot of people thought of a root of trust as just a secure place to store encryption keys. Like a digital safe. But that understanding is dangerously incomplete. This really shows the evolution perfectly. The old key vault model is totally passive. Yeah, it holds secrets, but it just blindly trusts that whoever or whatever is asking for them is legitimate. But the new living architecture model, it's active. It's autonomous. It doesn't just guard the keys, it's scrutinizing who's asking for them and why. And it does all this completely independently from the main system, which, by the way, might already be compromised. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Okay, this is getting complex. Why don't we just encrypt everything? If all the data is scrambled, we're safe, right? It seems logical, but the answer is surprisingly no. Here's the thing. That blanket encryption can actually become a smokescreen. When absolutely everything is encrypted, malicious traffic and legitimate traffic can look exactly the same. And guess what? Attackers love to hide in that noise. As the source material so brilliantly puts it, you end up dirtying your own plate. You're creating this opaque environment where threats can just operate completely invisible. All right, so if it's not just about keys, and it's not about blindly encrypting everything, then what does a true, modern hardware root of trust actually look like? Well, it's a complete architecture, and it's built on 4 absolutely critical pillars. First, it creates an unforgeable identity for the device. Can't be spoofed. Second, it has its own intelligence, its own AI to detect threats right there on the chip. Third, it's smart about encryption. It protects only what's necessary, so it doesn't create those hiding spots for attackers. And fourth, and this one is so crucial, it operates completely on its own, totally immune to anything that happens in the main operating system. This is probably the best analogy to tie it all together. A key is just one tool, right? A true security posture is the entire system working together. It's the guard who patrols, the cameras that watch, and the sentry at the gate who just cannot be bribed or tricked. That's the difference we're talking about.
And that's the real game changer here, autonomy. By embedding security this deeply, the chip itself can observe what's happening, decide if it's a threat, and then isolate it instantly, at the speed of silicon, without waiting for a command from the cloud or a security analyst.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but is it actually happening? The answer is a definite, loud yes. This isn't some far-off futuristic concept. This is an industry-wide shift that is already well underway, and it's being driven by some very powerful, very urgent forces.
Let's just look at the data. Gartner predicts that by 2027, over 30% of endpoint protection is going to shift to hardware. I mean, just look at the dramatic jump on this chart from today to 2027. That is a massive leap in a very short amount of time. This isn't just a trend, it's a rapid acceleration. So what's driving it?
Well, it's really a perfect storm. You've got the attackers themselves forcing our hand, with firmware and supply chain attacks becoming way more common and just devastating. And in response, you've got the world's most influential organizations, from the US Department of Defense to NIST, all saying the exact same thing. True security has to be anchored in hardware. And now regulations around the world are starting to demand it. The entire ecosystem is pushing in this one direction. And this right here is the core takeaway. For so long, we've tried to bolt security on from the outside, after the fact. The new paradigm is all about building devices that are secure by design, with trust coming from the most fundamental layer there is, the hardware itself.
And let's be super clear here. This is more than just adding another security product. This is a fundamental re-architecture of our entire digital infrastructure. We are changing the very definition of what makes a device trustworthy.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. We are entering an era of self-defending hardware, where the silicon is no longer some passive component, it's an active guardian. The implications are enormous, and it really forces us all to ask, what does our digital world even look like when the chip itself is the one standing watch?